The day I caught my sister consoling my husband about my barrenness was the day my world shattered into a million razor-sharp pieces. I stood frozen in our hallway, my hands still gripping the shopping bags I'd brought home early from my grocery run, listening to their voices drift from our kitchen. My name is Grace, and until that moment, I thought I had a perfect life. A loving husband of 5 years, a close relationship with my younger sister, and a beautiful home in the suburbs of Boston. The only cloud in our sky was our struggle to conceive, but Gerald and I were working through it together. Or so I thought. "It's not your fault," Violet's voice cooed. "You've done everything you could. Grace is the one who can't give you what you want." The shopping bag slipped from my fingers, but I caught them before they hit the floor. My heart hammered against my ribs as I inched closer to the kitchen doorway. Gerald's voice cracked. "I want a family so badly, Vi. Every time I see a father with his kids at the park, it kills me inside." "I know, sweetie. I know." The tenderness in my sister's voice made me sick. "Have you considered other options?" "What do you mean?" "Well," Violet paused. "The doctors confirmed it's Grace's problem, right? Maybe it's time to think about moving on. Finding someone who can give you the family you deserve." The silence that followed felt like an eternity. I waited for Gerald to defend me, to shut down this conversation, to tell my sister she was out of line. Instead, I heard him sigh. "I can't do that to Grace. But she's doing it to you." Violet's voice rose with fake concern. "She's stealing your chance at happiness, at having children. Every day you stay with her is another day you're losing." I backed away from the doorway, my vision blurring. The shopping bags finally dropped, sending oranges rolling across the hardwood floor. The conversation in the kitchen stopped abruptly. "Grace," Gerald called out. "Is that you?" I couldn't face them. Not yet. I turned and ran out the front door, ignoring their calls behind me. I drove to the only place I could think of, Irene's house. My best friend took one look at my face and pulled me inside. "What happened?" I collapsed onto her couch, the words spilling out between sobs. "They're plotting against me, Irene. My own sister, my husband." "Slow down." Irene sat beside me, holding my hands. "Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about the fertility treatments, about how each negative pregnancy test felt like a knife in my heart, about how Gerald had grown distant over the past few months, and how Violet had been spending more time at our house, always there to support us through our struggles. "Something's not right," Irene said after I finished. "Have you seen these medical reports yourself? The ones saying you're the problem?" I shook my head. "Gerald always handles the medical stuff. He says it stresses me out too much. Call your doctor's office." "Now." Irene handed me her phone. "Request copies of everything." My hands shook as I dialed the number. 10 minutes later, I hung up, my face pale. "What is it?" Irene asked. They said they never ran those tests on me. The ones Gerald showed me, they don't exist in their records." Irene's expression hardened. "Grace, I think you need to do some digging. This doesn't add up." Later that evening, I forced myself to return home. Gerald was waiting in the living room, pacing. "Where have you been?" I was worried sick. He rushed to hug me, but I stepped back. "I needed some air," I said, watching his face carefully. "After dropping those groceries." He relaxed slightly. "How much did you hear?" "Enough." I met his eyes. "Where's Violet?" "She left." He ran a hand through his hair. "Look, Grace, she was just trying to help." "Help who, Gerald?" My voice was eerily calm. "You? Or herself?" Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. I caught a glimpse of the screen, Violet's name, with a heart emoji next to it. Gerald quickly turned the phone face down. "I'm tired," I said, heading toward the stairs. "I'm going to bed." That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling while Gerald slept beside me. Through our bedroom window, I watched his car pull out of our driveway at 2 a.m. 20 minutes later, I drove past Violet's apartment building. Gerald's car was parked outside. Sometimes, the most painful truths come in the dead of night, when the world is quiet enough to hear your heart breaking. But as I drove home alone, something else stirred inside me, something harder and colder than heartbreak. something that whispered of justice. The next morning, I called in sick to work and waited for Gerald to leave. As soon as his car disappeared around the corner, I began my search. Our home office held 5 years of memories and secrets. "Come on," I muttered, rifling through Gerald's desk drawers. "Where are those medical reports?" The bottom drawer was locked. I remembered the spare key Gerald kept taped under his desk, a habit from his forgetful college days. My hands trembled as I retrieved it. Inside, I found a manila folder labeled Fertility Clinic. The documents looked official at first glance, but something felt off. I snapped photos and texted them to Irene. My phone rang almost immediately. "Grace, look at the letterhead," Irene said without greeting. "The clinic's address is wrong." I just checked their website. "What?" "And the doctor's signature. Dr. Harrison retired 2 years ago." "These are fake." The room spun. I gripped the edge of the desk to steady myself. How would Gerald even? "Wait," Irene cut in. "Doesn't Violet work at a printing company?" The pieces clicked into place. I remembered Violet bragging about her graphic design skills, about how she could replicate any document perfectly. At the time, I thought she was just proud of her work. My phone buzzed with another call. "Gerald." I declined it and texted, "Working through lunch. Talk later." I dug deeper into the drawer and found a small notebook. Inside were dates, times, and locations, all meetings between Gerald and Violet going back months. Some entries had little hearts drawn next to them. "Irene," I choked out. "I need you to come over." "Now." She arrived 15 minutes later with coffee and determination. "We're getting to the bottom of this today." We spent the next hour documenting everything. The fake medical reports, the secret meetings, the suspicious bank transfers to Violet's account labeled consulting fees. "Look at this," Irene pointed to a receipt. Gerald had his own fertility tests done at a different clinic 3 months ago. I called the clinic, putting on my best professional voice. "Hi, this is Dr. Walker's office. We need to verify some test results for Gerald. There seems to be a discrepancy in our records." The receptionist was helpful, too helpful. "Oh yes, poor Mr. Gerald. Such a difficult diagnosis. Complete azoospermia. He'll never be able to father children naturally. Did he not follow up with a genetic counselor as recommended?" My hand covered my mouth to stifle a gasp. Irene grabbed the phone. "Thank you, that's all we needed." She hung up and pulled me into a hug. "Oh, Grace." "It was never me," I whispered. "He's the one who can't," and they made me think. A key turned in the front door. Gerald was home early. "Quick," I hissed, shoving everything back into the drawer. We barely made it to the kitchen when Gerald walked in. He stopped short at the sight of Irene. "What's going on?" His eyes darted between us. "Girls' lunch," Irene said smoothly. "Grace needed company since you've been so busy lately." Gerald's phone chimed. He checked it, and I caught that familiar flash of guilt in his eyes. I need to handle something at work," he said. "Don't wait up for dinner." After he left, Irene grabbed my shoulders. "You need a lawyer." "Now." "I know someone," I said quietly. "Jeremy from college. He specializes in family law." Jeremy agreed to meet us that afternoon. In his downtown office, I laid out everything we'd found. "This is substantial," Jeremy said, reviewing the evidence. "The forged medical documents alone are criminal. But Grace, there's something else you should know." He pulled up a legal document on his computer. "Your husband had a trust fund that would only activate when he had his first child. Significant money, we're talking millions. So that's why." The pieces kept falling into place. "They needed you to think you were the problem," Irene said. "So you'd step aside voluntarily." Jeremy leaned forward. "Grace, you have options. We can file for divorce immediately, expose everything." "No," I said, an idea forming. "Not yet. I need you to help me with something else first." "What do you have in mind?" I took a deep breath. "Remember those eggs I froze 3 years ago, before my cancer scare? I want to know if they're still viable." Jeremy's eyes widened. "Grace. And I want to know my legal rights regarding Gerald's stored sperm samples from our IVF attempts." Irene grabbed my hand. "Are you thinking what I think you're thinking?" I nodded slowly. They wanted to take everything from me, my marriage, my chance at motherhood, my dignity. But they made one mistake. What's that? Jeremy asked. They underestimated how far I'd go to get justice. I straightened in my chair. So, Jeremy, can you help me? He smiled grimly. Let's talk strategy. Your eggs are perfectly viable, Dr. Chen confirmed, reviewing my medical records. And since you and Gerald signed joint ownership forms for all fertility treatments, you have equal rights to the stored genetic material. I sat in her office a week later, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. And the chances of success? With your age and health, very good. But Grace, she leaned forward. Are you sure about this? Having a child is a lifetime commitment, not a revenge plot? I finished. Trust me, Dr. Chen, I've wanted to be a mother my entire life. They tried to steal that from me. She nodded slowly. We'll need to do some preliminary tests first. As I left the clinic, my phone buzzed. Gerald's message read, working late again. Don't wait up. I typed back a simple okay and called Jeremy. Everything's set, he said. I've documented all the legal permissions. They can't stop you, even if they find out. They won't, I replied. Not until it's too late. That evening, Irene came over with takeout and wine. We sat on my back porch, watching the sunset. I saw Violet today, Irene said carefully. At the mall. She was shopping for wedding dresses. The wine glass froze halfway to my lips. Already? Apparently, they're planning a spring wedding. 6 months from now. I set down my glass. Perfect timing. Grace, Irene touched my arm. Are you absolutely sure about this? Having a baby, it's not something you can undo. I had my first IVF consultation this morning, I said. Dr. Chen thinks we could start the process next week. We? You mean? I've asked her to be discreet. As far as anyone knows, I'm just a single woman using a sperm donor. I managed a small smile. Technically, that's not even a lie. Irene's phone chimed. She checked it and her face darkened. You need to see this. It was a social media post from Violet, a photo of her hand wearing an enormous engagement ring, captioned, "Said yes to forever with my soulmate." Sometimes love takes unexpected paths to find its true destination. Unexpected paths? I laughed bitterly. Is that what she's calling it? There's more, Irene scrolled down. She's been telling people you abandoned Gerald because you couldn't handle the fertility issues. My hands shook as I reached for the wine bottle. Of course she has. The next morning, I met with Jeremy again. His office felt like a war room, with documents spread across his desk. I've set up everything, he said. Separate bank accounts, documentation of their affair, proof of the forged medical records. When the time comes, they won't know what hit them. And the fertility clinic? All paperwork is in order. They can't legally inform Gerald about any procedures. I pulled out my phone, showing him the engagement announcement. They're getting married in 6 months. Jeremy's eyebrows rose. That's ambitious. It's perfect, I said. By then, I'll be ready. Grace, Jeremy set down his pen. As your lawyer and friend, I need to ask, what's your endgame here? I met his eyes. Justice. Truth. And the family they tried to convince me I couldn't have. Later that day, I visited the fertility clinic for my first hormone injection. As the nurse prepared the shot, I thought about all the times I'd done this before, with Gerald holding my hand, both of us full of hope. Now I sat alone, but somehow feeling stronger. All done, the nurse said cheerfully. Remember, no strenuous activity for the next few days. That night, Gerald came home late again. I pretended to be asleep as he crept into bed, smelling of Violet's signature perfume. My phone lit up with a text from Dr. Chen, first follicle scan scheduled for Thursday. Looking good so far. I turned away from Gerald's sleeping form and typed back, I'll be there. The next few weeks passed in a blur of doctor's appointments and hormone injections. I told Gerald I was taking yoga classes, joining a book club, anything to explain my absences. He barely noticed, too wrapped up in his secret romance with my sister. Your body is responding perfectly, Dr. Chen said during one checkup. The egg retrieval should be next week. And then? She smiled. Then we fertilize them with the stored samples and wait. Are you ready for the possibility of multiple births? With your numbers, we might need to implant several embryos. I thought about Gerald and Violet, planning their perfect life together, thinking they'd won. I'm ready for anything, I said. Whatever it takes. Dr. Chin made some notes in my chart. In that case, let's schedule the retrieval for Monday. As I left the clinic, I touched my stomach gently. Soon, I thought. Soon they'll learn that karma doesn't just come around. Sometimes it multiplies. Triplets, Dr. Chin announced, pointing at the ultrasound screen. All 3 embryos took. See these 3 strong heartbeats? I lay on the examination table, tears streaming down my face as I watched the tiny flutters on the monitor. After all the deception, all the pain, here was my miracle, times 3. I'll give you a moment, Dr. Chin said softly, stepping out of the room. I pulled out my phone and texted Irene, 3. I'm having 3 babies. Her response was immediate. OMG. On my way with ice cream. By the time I got home, Gerald had left another note. Weekend business trip with the partners. Back Sunday. I knew he was really at a romantic getaway with Violet. They'd gotten bolder lately, not even trying to hide their meetings anymore. Irene arrived with 3 pints of ice cream. 1 for each baby. I'm going to get so fat, I laughed, already showing at 12 weeks. You're going to get caught if you stay here, she said, suddenly serious. You can't hide 3 babies forever. Already handled, I patted the stack of papers on my coffee table. Jeremy found me a house in Cambridge. I move next week. What about Gerald? I left divorce papers on his desk this morning. Cited irreconcilable differences. I spooned ice cream into my mouth. He'll be too relieved to question it. The divorce went through quickly. Gerald, eager to start his new life with Violet, agreed to all my terms. He never noticed the careful wording Jeremy had included about genetic material rights. For months later, I waddled through my new home, setting up the nursery with Irene's help. 3 cribs, she marveled, assembling the last one. Are you sure you can handle this alone? I'm not alone, I smiled. I have you, don't I? My phone buzzed. A text from Jeremy. Wedding date set. May 15th at the Grand Hotel. Perfect timing, I muttered. I'll be ready. The babies arrived 2 weeks early on a stormy April night. 3 perfect little girls, Lily, Rose, and Iris. As I held them for the first time, all thoughts of revenge momentarily faded. They were mine, wholly and completely mine. They looked just like him, Irene whispered, cradling Lily. They do, I agreed. That's rather the point. The next few weeks passed in a blur of midnight feedings and diaper changes. The girls were surprisingly good babies, taking turns being fussy as if they'd coordinated their schedules. One morning, as I was feeding Rose, my phone lit up with a wedding invitation, sent to my old email address. They were inviting me, probably to prove there were no hard feelings. Your mommy's going to that wedding, I told Rose, who blinked up at me with Gerald's eyes. And you 3 are going to help her tell the truth. At 6 weeks old, the girls had their first photo shoot. Professional photos for documentation, Jeremy had insisted. Legal proof. These are perfect, Jeremy said, reviewing the photos in his office. The resemblance is undeniable. Have you seen the latest about their wedding? He pulled up Violet's social media. She'd been posting about fertility treatments, setting up her story about finally giving Gerald the family he deserved. She's telling everyone she's pregnant, Jeremy said. Due in December. I laughed. Well, won't that be interesting to explain? That evening, as I rocked Iris to sleep, I got another text from Gerald, the first since our divorce. Violet told me about the wedding invitation. I hope you'll come. We'd like to make peace. I showed the message to Irene, who was burping Lily. Make peace, she scoffed. More like show off their perfect life. Little do they know, I smiled, watching my daughters sleep. Little do they know. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. Jeremy helped me gather all the documentation, DNA tests, fertility clinic records, proof of Gerald's condition, evidence of their affair, and the forged medical records. Are you ready for this? He asked, organizing the files. Once you do this, there's no going back. I looked at my girls, all three napping in their swings. They tried to convince me I couldn't be a mother, that I was broken. They need to face what they did. And the fallout? Sometimes, I said, touching Lily's tiny hand as she slept, the truth hurts. But lies hurt more. The wedding was 2 weeks away. I had everything prepared, the documents, the photos, the DNA tests. But most importantly, I had 3 beautiful baby girls who were about to turn their father's wedding into an unveiling of truth. Your daddy and aunt thought they could fool everyone, I whispered to my sleeping daughters. But you 3 are living proof of their lies. And soon, everyone will know. Violet's planning to announce her pregnancy during the reception toasts, Irene reported, scrolling through her phone. She'd maintained a friendly social media relationship with my sister, becoming our inside source. She's even wearing a loose dress to hint at a baby bump. I adjusted Rose's tiny bow while Lily and Iris napped in their carriers. How considerate of her to set the perfect stage. Grace, Irene set down her phone, walk me through the plan one more time. The ceremony starts at 2, I said, checking my own timeline. They'll do photos after, then the reception begins at 5. Violet plans to make her announcement during the toasts at 6. And you'll arrive. At 5:45. Jeremy will already be there as a guest. He's bringing all the documentation. The girl's nanny will wait with them in the hotel lobby until I text her. My phone buzzed. A message from Jeremy. DNA test results certified by the lab. Ironclad proof of paternity. The week before the wedding crawled by. I spent it rehearsing my speech, preparing the girls' outfits, and making sure every detail was perfect. The night before, I could barely sleep. Mommy's going to need you 3 to be on your best behavior tomorrow, I told my daughters as I fed them their morning bottles. It's going to be a big day. Irene arrived early to help me get ready. She zipped me into a sleek navy dress that showed off my post-baby body. All those midnight feeding sessions had melted the pregnancy weight faster than I'd expected. You look amazing, she said, adjusting my hair. They won't know what hit them. The nanny, Sarah, arrived at noon. We'd hired her specifically for this day after thorough background checks and several trial runs with the girls. Remember, I told her, wait in the lobby with the girls until I text. If anyone asks, you're watching them for a hotel guest. Got it, Sarah nodded, already familiar with our plan. Don't worry, they'll be perfect. My phone lit up with messages throughout the afternoon. Jeremy, in position. Half the town is here. Irene, ceremony just ended. Violet looks smug as hell. Jeremy, reception starting. You ready? I checked my reflection one last time. Ready. The grand hotel loomed before me, its elegant facade masking the drama about to unfold inside. I texted Sarah, get the girls ready. 20 minutes. The reception was in full swing when I walked in. Heads turned as I passed, whispers following in my wake. I spotted Gerald and Violet at the head table, lost in their own world. Jeremy appeared at my elbow, manila envelope in hand. Everything's set. Violet's father is about to start the toasts. I positioned myself near the back, watching as various family members stood to congratulate the happy couple. Finally, Violet rose, champagne glass in hand. Before anyone else speaks, she beamed, one hand resting on her stomach. Gerald and I have an announcement. I pulled out my phone and texted Sarah. Now, the ballroom doors opened. Sarah entered with the triple stroller, my 3 beautiful girls dressed in matching white dresses. The room fell silent. I have an announcement too, I said, my voice carrying across the stunned crowd. Gerald, Violet, meet your daughters. Well, Gerald's daughters, to be precise. Gerald's face went pale. Violet's champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. That's impossible, Gerald stammered. I can't. Can't father children? I walked forward, Jeremy beside me with the documents. Funny how you never told Violet about that diagnosis. About your genetic condition. About how you let her blame me instead. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Violet's mother stood up, staring at the babies. They look just like Gerald. Because they are his, I said, taking the envelope from Jeremy. DNA tests prove it. Remember all those fertility treatments we did, Gerald? All those samples you provided? Turns out they worked after all. You had no right. Violet shrieked, her carefully constructed facade cracking. Actually, I had every right. I handed the legal documents to Gerald's father, a retired judge. Check the paperwork yourself. Everything was completely legal. Guests crowded around the stroller, exclaiming over the girl's resemblance to Gerald. His mother reached in to touch Lily's cheek, tears in her eyes. But I'm pregnant, Violet protested weakly. Are you? I raised an eyebrow. Like you were infertile? Like those medical records you forged? Should we wait 9 months to see if that's another lie? Gerald slumped in his chair, the truth finally hitting him. Triplets, he whispered. Yes, I smiled, lifting Rose from the stroller. Would you like to meet your daughters? Or should I say, your only children? Because we both know you'll never have any others. The room erupted in chaos. Violet's makeup streaked down her face as she ran from the room. Gerald's parents were demanding explanations. And in the middle of it all, my 3 perfect baby girls began to cry in perfect harmony, their wails echoing through the destroyed wedding reception like a symphony of justice. How could you do this to me? Violet emerged from the bathroom, her wedding dress wrinkled, mascara streaking her cheeks. Your own sister. How could I? I bounced Iris gently as she fussed. How could you forge medical documents to convince your sister she was barren? How could you steal her husband while pretending to support her? Gerald's mother cradled Lily, tears streaming down her face. They're so beautiful, Grace. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? I asked. Or would you have believed their lies, like everyone else did? Gerald hadn't moved from his chair, staring at Rose in his father's arms. I don't understand, he mumbled. The doctors said I couldn't. That's right, Jeremy stepped forward, spreading medical records on the table. You were diagnosed with complete azoospermia 3 months before you left Grace. But instead of telling her the truth, you let your girlfriend hear forged documents blaming Grace for everything. The wedding guests huddled in groups, phones out, documenting every moment of the unfolding drama. Violet's father approached, his face red with rage. You've ruined everything, he shouted at me. No, Gerald's father interrupted, still holding the DNA test results. Your daughter ruined everything. These documents prove it. The forged medical records, the affair, it's all here. Violet collapsed into a chair. Gerald, tell them it's not true. Tell them we're having a baby. Gerald finally looked up, his face ashen. Are we, Violet? Are we really? The silence that followed was deafening. I was going to figure something out, Violet whispered. Figure something out? Gerald's mother's voice rose. You were going to fake a pregnancy too? More gasps from the crowd. Phones kept recording. Someone muttered, this is better than reality TV. Mrs. Anderson, I turned to Gerald's mother, would you like to know your granddaughters' names? She nodded eagerly, still holding Lily. You're holding Lily. Your husband has Rose, and this is Iris. I smiled at the babies. I thought they deserved names as beautiful as they are. Flower names, Gerald whispered. Like your grandmother's garden. The grandmother who raised me after our parents died. I looked at Violet. The grandmother you were too busy to visit when she was sick. Violet's makeup was completely ruined now. You always got everything. The attention, the love, the perfect life. I just wanted what I had. I finished for her. Well, congratulations. You got my husband. But I got something better, the truth. And 3 beautiful daughters who will never have to wonder if they're worthy of love. Gerald stood suddenly. Can I hold one? The room went quiet again. I hesitated, then carefully transferred Iris to his arms. He stared down at her tiny face, his hands shaking. She has my mother's nose, he choked out. They all do, I said softly. And your eyes. And your chin. I'm their father, he whispered, reality finally sinking in. I have daughters. I corrected him. You had your chance at being their father. You lost that right when you chose lies over truth. Violet lunged forward. You can't keep them from him. They're his children too. Actually, Jeremy stepped in, she can. The divorce agreement you so eagerly signed included very specific language about genetic material rights. Grace has full custody. You gave up any claim to children conceived through IVF when you signed those papers. But I didn't know. Gerald protested. No, I took Iris back from him. You didn't know because you were too busy planning your new life with my sister to read what you were signing. Too busy believing her lies to see the truth. The wedding planner appeared, nervously wringing her hands. Should I tell the band to start playing? A laugh rippled through the crowd. Violet's mother stood up. This wedding is over. Everyone go home. As guests began filing out, many stopped to peer at the babies, to touch my arm in support, to glare at Violet and Gerald. Their perfect wedding had become the perfect scandal. Grace, Gerald called as I prepared to leave. Please, can I be part of their lives? I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since entering the room. The man I'd once loved, now reduced to a stranger in a groom's tuxedo, begging for scraps of what could have been his. You know what the saddest part is? I said quietly. If you'd just been honest about your condition, we could have faced it together. We could have been a family. Instead, you chose lies. I turned to the nanny. Sarah, let's take the girls home. As we walked out of the ruined wedding reception, 3 perfect babies sleeping peacefully in their stroller, I heard Violet's wail echo behind us. Gerald, where are you going? But I didn't look back. Some chapters need to end before better ones can begin. The aftermath hit like a tsunami. By morning, videos of the wedding confrontation had gone viral. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with messages from reporters, distant relatives, and strangers offering support. You're trending on Twitter, Irene announced, scrolling through her phone while feeding Rose. People are calling you #Revenge Queen. Great, I sighed, changing Lily's diaper. Just what I wanted. Internet fame. My doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I saw Gerald's mother standing on my porch, holding what looked like a photo album. Should I let her in? Irene asked. I nodded. She deserves to know her granddaughters. Grace, Gerald's mother rushed in, hugging me tightly. I'm so sorry. We had no idea what they were doing to you. She set the album down and immediately went to the babies. May I? Of course, I said, watching as she gently lifted Iris from her swing. I brought something, she gestured to the album. Gerald's baby photos. I thought you might want to see the resemblance. We sat together, flipping through pages while the girls napped. Every photo showed just how strongly my daughters had inherited their father's features. He's a fool, his mother said suddenly. Both of them are. Violet's been calling the house nonstop, trying to explain, but she shook her head. There's no explaining this away. My phone buzzed. A message from Jeremy. Gerald's at my office. He wants to negotiate visitation rights. No, I typed back. He made his choice. The doorbell rang again. This time, it was Violet. Don't open it, Irene warned, but I was already heading to the door. My sister stood there, still wearing yesterday's makeup, clutching a stack of papers. Grace, please. Just listen. Why should I? Because I'm pregnant, she blurted out. For real this time. I just found out. I laughed bitterly. With Gerald's baby? We both know that's impossible. No, it's not Gerald's. Her voice cracked. It's Marcus's. From the printing company, where I got the papers forged. Gerald's mother gasped behind me. Does Gerald know? He does now. Violet wiped her eyes. He left me last night. After the wedding, he said he couldn't trust anything I'd ever told him. Karma's funny that way, I said, starting to close the door. Wait. She thrust the papers forward. These are all the originals. The forged documents, the fake test results, everything. I'm turning myself in. I needed you to know I'm sorry. Before I could respond, another car pulled up. Gerald stepped out, looking like he hadn't slept. What are you doing here? Violet asked. Same as you, I guess, he said, not meeting her eyes. Trying to make things right. There's no making this right, I said firmly. I know, Gerald ran his hands through his hair. But our daughters. My daughters, I corrected. Please, he stepped closer. I'll do anything. Therapy, parenting classes, whatever you want. Just don't keep them from me forever. One of the babies started crying inside. Gerald's face crumpled at the sound. You lied to me, I said quietly. Both of you. You made me think I was broken, that I was less of a woman because I couldn't give you children. Do you have any idea what that did to me? I was scared, Gerald admitted. When I got my diagnosis, I couldn't face it. And then Violet suggested destroying my life instead of dealing with yours? I'm turning myself in, Violet repeated. The document fraud, the conspiracy. I'll plead guilty. Inside, all 3 babies were crying now. Gerald's mother went to tend to them, leaving us in this twisted family tableau on my front porch. I have to go take care of my daughters, I said. You both need to leave. Grace, Gerald called as I turned away. Will you ever forgive us? I looked at my sister, then at my ex-husband. 2 people I'd once loved more than anything, now strangers wearing the faces of betrayal. Forgiveness isn't something you earn by saying sorry, I replied. It's something you earn through actions, through change, through time. Right now, all I see are 2 people who got caught in their lies and want absolution. What can we do? Violet asked. Live with your choices, I said. Like I had to live with your lies. And maybe someday, when my daughters are old enough to understand, I'll let them decide if they want to know the whole story. I closed the door on their protests, returning to my babies. Gerald's mother was successfully calming them, humming an old lullaby. You're stronger than I ever knew, she said softly. I picked up Lily, breathing in her sweet baby scent. I had to be, for them. Outside, I heard car doors slam, engine start. The sound of consequences driving away, leaving 3 perfect reasons to look forward instead of back. Look what came in the mail, Irene said, handing me a newspaper clipping while Lily and Rose played with blocks on the floor. Iris was napping in her swing. The headline read, Local woman pleads guilty to document fraud, conspiracy. Below was Violet's mugshot, her face drawn and pale. 6 months probation and community service, I read aloud. Plus mandatory counseling. Are you okay? Irene asked. Before I could answer, my doorbell rang. Gerald's mother stood outside with a familiar-looking box. I found this in our attic, she said, setting the box on my coffee table. Your grandmother's recipe collection. Violet took it after she passed, but, well, it belongs to you. I opened the box, inhaling the scent of old paper and memories. I thought these were lost forever. Like a lot of things, she said, picking up Rose as she toddled over. Gerald asked about the girls again. He's been going to therapy, Irene added. Every week, according to his mother. I know, I said, watching Lily stack another block. His therapist contacted me, asked if I'd consider family counseling. The room went quiet except for the baby's babbling. Gerald's mother bounced Rose gently. And will you? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to keep them far away from all that pain. But another part. My phone buzzed. A text from Jeremy. Gerald filed for voluntary child support. No strings attached, no custody demands. Just wants to contribute. He's trying, his mother said softly. Trying doesn't undo what they did. No, she agreed. But it might help build something new. Lily pulled herself up using the coffee table, reaching for her grandmother. These moments, watching my daughters discover their world, seeing them loved by family who chose truth over lies, made everything worth it. The doorbell rang again. This time it was my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen. Sorry to interrupt, she said, but there's someone sitting in a car outside. Been there for hours. Should I call the police? I checked the security camera feed on my phone. Violet sat in her car, just staring at the house. I'll handle it, I said, handing Lily to Irene. The autumn air was crisp as I walked to Violet's car. She rolled down her window, revealing dark circles under her eyes. I lost everything, she said without preamble. Marcus left when I got convicted. My job, my friends, everyone knows what I did. That's what truth does, I replied. It reveals who we really are. I see them sometimes, she nodded toward my house. At the park with you. They're beautiful. They are. I'm getting help, she said quietly. Real help, not just the court-mandated stuff. I needed to understand why I hurt you like that. A laugh drifted from my open front door, Lily or Rose, discovering some new delight. I don't expect forgiveness, Violet continued. I just needed you to know I understand now. What I took from you. What I tried to destroy. But you didn't destroy me, I said. You tried to break me, and instead, I became stronger. I became a mother, not because of you or Gerald, but in spite of you both. She nodded, tears falling. Can I see them sometime? Not now, but someday. That's not my decision anymore, I replied. Someday, they'll be old enough to choose for themselves. Until then, my job is to protect them, including from people who might hurt them like you hurt me. I understand, she whispered. Thank you for at least listening. As she drove away, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, but a release. The weight of betrayal lifting, replaced by the strength of survival. Inside, my daughters were having dinner, Gerald's mother and Irene helping with the chaos of feeding 3 toddlers. Everything okay? Irene asked. Actually, yes, I said, taking my place between Lily and Rose's high chairs. For the first time in a long time, everything's exactly as it should be. Iris threw her spoon, giggling as it clattered to the floor. Rose immediately did the same, followed by Lily, their synchronized mischief a reminder of how they came to be. You know, Gerald's mother said, retrieving the spoons, sometimes the family we choose is stronger than the family we're born into. I looked around my kitchen, at Irene, who stood by me through everything, at Gerald's mother, who chose truth over loyalty, at my 3 beautiful daughters, who gave me the strength to fight back. You're right, I smiled, wiping spaghetti sauce from Lily's chin. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better. Rose reached for me, sauce-covered hands and all, and I pulled her close, not caring about the mess. Because sometimes, the most perfect moments come after the hardest battles, and the sweetest victories aren't about destroying your enemies. They're about building something beautiful from the ashes of what they tried to destroy.